You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
The monsoon session came to a dramatic end with both houses of the parliament getting adjourned 2 days ahead of its scheduled conclusion amid accusations against the opposition of stalling the functioning of the parliament. Undoubtedly, the Pegasus snooping scandal took a center stage as the opposition accused the centre of diluting discussions on pertinent issues. But even as they demanded answers, the government made it clear that they were unwilling to discuss this, and Union Minister Prahlad Joshi even called Pegasus a quote-unquote non-issue. A few other matters, such as those around COVID management in the second wave, fuel price hikes and demands to roll back farm laws, also led to political deadlocks in the parliament. But despite numerous disruptions, the Rajya Sabha passed 19 bills in just 17 days, which is the highest number of bills to be passed in the upper house since 2014. While it's important to look at what bills were passed, it's also important to note how the bills were passed, as many of them, such as the General Insurance Business Amendment Bill or the Tribunals Reforms Bill, were passed without adequate discussions. In fact, the GIC bill, touted to be an anti-people bill by the opposition, which aims to allow privatization of state-run general insurance companies, was passed by a voice vote in the Rajya Sabha amid shocking scenes as opposition MPs climbed tables and tussled with marshals who formed a human chain around the well. And as the tempestuous session came to an abrupt ending, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu broke down while delivering a speech lamenting the quote-unquote sacrilege of the temple of democracy by the opposition that gave him quote-unquote a sleepless night.
Entering this sanctum sanctorum of the House in itself is an act of sacrilege. It has been happening as a routine for some time. I am distressed by the way this sacredness was destroyed yesterday. While some members sat on the table, some others climbed on the table of the House, perhaps to be more visible in such acts of sacrilege. I have no words to convey my anguish and to condemn such acts. As I spent a sleepless night, last night.
But the opposition parties are taking a united front and have decided to take out a march to protest against the quote-unquote stifling of their voices in the parliament. Now, political disagreements, debating and walkouts have always been a part of India's parliamentary democracy, but lately are we seeing a breakdown of the ethos of that democracy? In this episode, we spoke to Mr. Chakshu Roy, the head of legislative and civic engagement at PRS Legislative Research. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you. And I'm your host, Shorburi. With the Pegasus scandal breaking a day before, the monsoon session that commenced on 19th July was expected to be tempestuous as the centre found itself in the back foot from the very beginning. The revelation that thousands of people from across the world, including over 300 Indians, may have been spied on using this dangerous spyware has been shocking to say the least. On its part, the NSO group which owns the spyware has said that they only sell it to vetted sovereign governments, but even as globally governments are launching swift probes into this travesty of human rights, the centre's non-committal stance only aggravated the proceedings of the parliament further. While furious opposition parties demanded that Prime Minister Narendra Modi attend the parliament to hold discussions on Pegasus, for the most part, the centre constantly shied away from giving clarity on whether or not any of its agencies use the software on Indian citizens. And of course, this issue kicked up an unruly political storm in the parliament that marred much of the initial weeks of the session. After days of refusing to engage with the opposition, finally, on 9th August, a laconic response came from the MOS for Defence, Ajay Bhatt, who said that the Defence Ministry did not have any transaction with the NSO group. But that hasn't come close to quenching the many questions around who used the Pegasus spyware. But even as the disruptions led to an unceremonious ending of the monsoon session, the political rows continued outside the parliament with a CCTV footage emerging from Rajya Sabha capturing a wild scene unbefitting of the parliament decorum. In the video, opposition MPs were seen tussling with marshals who were stationed in the parliament. Some were seen to be tearing paper and tossing them around, while some were seen climbing the reporter's table to protest against the government. Now, a joint statement by opposition parties claimed, and I'm quoting a few lines, quote, Without any provocation, outsiders who were not a part of Parliament's security were brought in to manhandle opposition leaders and members, including women MPs, who were only protesting the government's conduct, high-handedness, and muzzling of their voice, end quote. But the centre has also launched a counter-attack. In a press conference, Prahlad Joshi, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, accused the opposition of, quote-unquote, literally threatening that if the government attempts to pass more bills, there will be even more damage done. And Textiles Minister Piyush Goyal, who alleged that a woman marshal in the Rajya Sabha had been injured, also demanded action against the opposition. Listen to a snippet of what Mr. Goyal said.
कि ये जो उनका भद्दा व्यवहार था, ये जो हिंसक घटनाएं विपक्ष ने की, ये साधारण नहीं थी और साधारण मिसकॉन्डक्ट के लिए रूल बुक में एक सस्पेंशन का नोटिस दे दो और कर लो. ये असाधारण हिंसक घटनाओं के ऊपर मिसकॉन्डक्ट इतना गहरा था कि इस पे कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई करने के लिए इसकी गहराई पे जाना पड़ेगा. सभी सीसीटीवी कैमरास, राज्यसभा टीवी, सबको एक उच्च स्तरीय कमेटी को स्टडी करनी चाहिए. माननीय चेयर से हमने अनुरोध किया है कि वो सब स्टडी करके और देश के सामने सच्चाई आनी चाहिए, देश को पता चलना चाहिए.
While non-stop disruptions affected the proceedings of the session, another concerning factor is also the fact that in the middle of all the ruckus, the House has passed several bills which are likely to have far-reaching impacts without any discussion. Three crucial bills: the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill 2021, the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation Amendment Bill, and the Constitution Order Amendment Bill were passed in the Lok Sabha on 9th August, just minutes after they were tabled. The Rajya Sabha too passed a number of bills in a similar manner. And in a sense, it's all quite similar to the last monsoon session, which too have been characterized by undemocratic acts from parliamentarians, constant disruptions, and important legislations like the farm bills being deftly pushed without adequate discussions. Now, political disagreements and walkouts are not uncommon in India's vibrant parliament, but with the recent sessions, are we witnessing a breakdown of parliamentary democracy? Mr. Chakshu Roy, the head of legislative and civic engagement at PRS Legislative Research, weighs in.
I think, whenever you look at the functioning of Parliament, there are certain indicators which point out to whether the institution is working effectively or not. And one metric of, interpreting as to the health of the institution and whether deliberations are happening or not happening is looking at how legislation gets passed. Now, if we look at, as you mentioned, if you look at the previous session, and the budget session and the current session, there were occasions that, bills were introduced in the same session and they were passed in the same session. Now, when laws are made at the highest law-making institution, they should go through a lot more scrutiny than a simple debate on the floor of the House. So it's not a question of either or, that should bills only be scrutinized by committees and then passed quickly, or be debated extensively in the House but not debated in the committees. I think both of them are important. Now, in some cases, bills have been discussed extensively in the House but not sent to committees. In this session, there were multiple bills which were not even discussed in the House. The House was under disruption and the bills were passed without anybody participating in the discussion. And in the current Lok Sabha, I think it's only about 12 or 13% of the bills that have been looked at and examined and scrutinized by parliamentary committees. So for me, that's a worrying sign as to the deliberative effectiveness of a parliamentary institution.
After the session ended on a bitter note, with both the Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla and VP Venkaiah Naidu lamenting the violation of the temple of democracy, reports pointed out that Rajya Sabha lost 72 hours due to disruptions, while the Lok Sabha's productivity dropped to 22%. And all this made the monsoon session one of the least productive ones in the recent years. But bills and productivity aside, this session also came at a very crucial juncture after the second wave of COVID battered the health and the economy of the nation. The lack of preparedness cost a lot of lives, and the session was an opportunity to hold our lawmakers accountable. However, due to disruptions and due to the centre's hesitation to engage on pertinent matters, a lot of these discussions are still unfinished. Certainly, there were outcries from members of opposition such as RJD MP Manoj Jha, whose impassioned speech on COVID earned a lot of praise. But when it wasn't the Pegasus issue, other matters such as farm laws, rising fuel prices, and inflation triggered an uproar in both the houses, with neither the government nor the opposition budging an inch. The farm laws, in fact, that were passed last year have been fueling non-stop protests from farmers in the capital who have demanded the government to repeal those laws. But while talks with farmers have reached a stalemate, in the parliament too, it made no headway. In fact, the one rare moment when the opposition and the centre were on the same page was during the passing of the OBC bill. But what are the casualties of such a disarrayed parliament? Mr. Roy says that ultimately the casualties of an unproductive session are the financial costs to the taxpaying citizens, the loss of opportunity to making good legislations, and the ability to hold the government accountable.
So, when Parliament does not function, it has a cascading effect on a number of things. We talked about legislation. If legislation is passed in a hurried manner, then there is a possibility that that legislation, when it is implemented on the ground, may not be effective. Which means that there will be, more effort, either to implement the law or to change the law by the government. Mm-hmm. The other part is our constitution, gives Parliament the responsibility that it should keep a check on the functioning of the government. Mm. So Parliament's role also is to ensure that the government is doing, the most effective and efficient job for the people of the country. Mm. And mechanisms for keeping that accountability are question hour, debate on the floor of the House. So when Parliament's functioning is disrupted, question hour does not take place, which means MPs who are asking oral questions to ministers, because the House is disrupted, either the question hour is adjourned or ministers are not able to answer those questions. So that accountability process is weakened. When Parliament does not discuss an issue, then members of different political parties are not able to put forth their views on a particular subject. Now, we've had a pandemic since last year, and we've had a limited number of Parliament sessions. The budget session of 2020 was, cut short because of the pandemic. The monsoon session was held late in September. It had to be cut short again because of the pandemic. This year, the budget session was cut short. And now we have the monsoon session where, work did not happen. So these accountability opportunities over the last year and a half have been missed. If Parliament does not keep the government accountable, how does the government course correct on, some of the actions?
While a dysfunctioning parliament is fast becoming a pattern, what kind of overhauls does it need? Mr. Roy believes that first and foremost, we need an all-year-round parliament.
So I think one big thing that needs to happen is that Parliament needs to meet throughout the year, like other parliaments in other developed countries of the world. If we are a mature democracy, our Parliament can't be meeting, sporadically 3 times a year. It should meet throughout the year so that it has enough time to discuss and debate things. MPs should have enough time to represent, what their constituents feel like. Government should get enough time to, showcase and highlight what the government is doing. So if we don't have enough time for that, then, it creates this mechanism where Parliament has to hurry through things. Sometimes it has to hurry through things because it is getting disrupted. sometimes it has to hurry through things, even if things are working normally, because it just doesn't have enough, time to transact all the business.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Big Story, but do check out the Quint's podcast page for more podcasts. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story playlist for episodic updates. We're live on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website and check out the podcast section. For any feedback, shoot an email to podcasts@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.